This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years.
For Steve Jobs, no detail was too small, not even the color of your headphones. But why would the Apple CEO care so much about something so seemingly trivial? It's the early 2000s, and you spot something curious on the streets. People with bright white earbud cords dangling from their ears. In a sea of black and gray headphones, these white earbuds stand out a mile away. And that was exactly the point. For Steve Jobs, even the tiniest detail, like the color of headphones, was a make-or-break decision in defining a product's identity. Steve Jobs' obsession with product details was legendary. He agonized over everything from the feel of a button click to the shade of white on a headphone cord. Why? Because to Jobs, design wasn't just about looking cool. It was about creating an emotional connection and a seamless user experience. As he famously said, design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. But that didn't mean he ignored how it looks. Far from it. Apple's design philosophy under Jobs was all about simplicity and standing out from the crowd. Think back to 1998 when Apple unveiled the iMac G3 in Bondi Blue. It was friendly, fun, and nothing like the boring beige PCs everyone had. Jobs knew that a splash of color could redefine a product's image. Fast forward a few years to 2001. Apple is about to launch the iPod, a device that would revolutionize music. This time, the design statement wasn't a translucent computer shell, but a little pair of earbuds. When Steve Jobs introduced the original iPod, he pulled out a sleek white device the size of a deck of cards. But it wasn't just the iPod's shape or size that grabbed attention. It was the earphones. Apple's choice to make the iPod's earbuds and cables pure white was unheard of in an era when most headphones were black. Those white earbuds soon became iconic symbols of the iPod revolution. Walk down any street, and if you saw white cords, you knew that person had an iPod. It was instant brand recognition. Here's the twist. Steve Jobs initially wasn't a fan of white gadgets at all. Surprising, right? According to Apple designer Jony Ive, Jobs reflexively disliked white when the design team first presented the concept. Ive was passionate about using white, calling it brutally simple, not a color. Supposedly neutral, but just an unmistakable, shocking neutral. He and his team believed a stainless steel and white iPod would be timeless and striking. But Jobs wasn't convinced at first. Steve pushed back. He just didn't like how stark white looked initially. So Apple's designers got creative. They mixed up near white shades with poetic names like cloud white, snow white, glacial white, even one dubbed moon gray. These were basically white with a tiny twist of gray. The team was trying to sneak white in through the back door, hoping one of these subtle hues would win Steve over. Finally, one did. Moon gray, a shade so faintly gray that it appeared almost white, caught Jobs' eye. He approved it for the iPod's headphones and cords. In fact, those famous white earbud cords Apple shipped were actually moon gray in disguise. Most people never knew the difference. Under the world, they looked perfectly, immaculately white. And what an impact that decision had. The white, or shall we say moon gray, earbuds became a signature of Apple's design. Apple's advertising made full use of it too. Remember those iPod silhouette commercials? Dark silhouettes dancing on vibrant neon backgrounds with a glowing white iPod and white earbuds, the only bright white in the scene. That stark contrast made the product instantly recognizable. The ads didn't even need to show a logo or explain anything. The white headphones alone told you it was an Apple iPod. The cultural impact was huge. White earbuds were suddenly cool. They symbolized having the latest and greatest tech. There were even reports of muggers targeting people wearing Apple's white earphones because it signaled they had a pricey iPod in their pocket. That's how powerful a little design choice became. It turned headphones, something purely functional, into a fashion statement and a status symbol. So why did Steve Jobs care so much about this detail? Because for him, every aspect of a product told a story. The iPod wasn't just a music player, it was an experience, a statement. Jobs wanted you to feel something when you held an Apple product or even when you saw someone else with one. He understood that the color of the headphones could make Apple's device immediately identifiable and set it apart from everything else. It was marketing without marketing, a subtle, silent advertisement in every cafe, on every sidewalk. Jobs also believed in end-to-end control of the user experience. Apple under Jobs was notorious for wanting to design every element of their products, hardware, software, and even accessories, to ensure quality and unity. If Apple was going to include headphones with the iPod, He wanted even that accessory to meet the same standards and vision as the iPod itself. That meant it had to not only work well, but also look and feel absolutely right. His obsession with detail went beyond just color. For example, during the iPod's development, Jobs was even concerned about the sound and feel of plugging in the headphones. In one story, just days before launch, he kept inserting the headphone jack and frowning. Finally, he asked, "Where's the click?" The engineers were puzzled. Click? Jobs explained that users needed a satisfying little click when the plug went in to know it was securely connected. Without that, people might keep pushing the jack in or worry it wasn't seated, possibly even breaking it. So the team engineered a subtle click into the headphone jack. A tiny detail, but exactly the kind of detail Jobs lived for. These anecdotes highlight a core part of Jobs' philosophy. Users might not consciously notice these little details, but collectively they add up to a superior experience. Jobs often drew from an old lesson his father taught him about craftsmanship, that even the back of a cabinet or fence, the part nobody will see, should be made as nicely as the front because you will know it's there. Similarly, Jobs cared about things like the color of headphone cords or the layout of a circuit board, details most users might never think about, simply because he believed great products are the sum of 1,000 small decisions done right. Under Jobs, Apple cultivated this ethos. Together with designer Jony Ive, Jobs built a design language around simplicity, consistency, and clarity. The white earbuds fit perfectly into that vision, simple and pure yet instantly distinctive. Ive once noted that white isn't even truly a color, but a neutral canvas that lets the product speak for itself. That neutrality gave Apple's devices a kind of elegance and allowed the user and their content to take center stage. The success of Apple's white headphones also subtly influenced the entire industry. Suddenly, white gadgets and accessories became trendy for other brands too. But for Apple, it wasn't about trend. It was a strategic choice rooted in how Jobs wanted people to experience technology as something personal, joyful, and even artful. Even today, that legacy continues. Those original iPod earbuds evolved into the iconic Apple EarPods, and now AirPods, and they're still unmistakably white. Apple has offered headphones in other colors, especially after acquiring the Beats brand, but that classic glossy white remains the defining Apple look. It's a direct reflection of Jobs' influence, echoing his belief that design excellence shows in the smallest of details. In the end, the story of Steve Jobs and the headphone color isn't just about picking white earbuds. It's about a philosophy of design where every detail matters. Jobs cared about the color of headphones because he understood that something as small as color could shape how we feel about a product. It could become part of the product's identity, even part of our identity when we use it. By insisting that those little earbuds be a certain color, he turned an ordinary detail into an extraordinary marketing device and a cultural icon. So, the next time you see someone with those familiar white earphones or you pop in your AirPods, remember this. That exact shade of white was agonized over. It was chosen deliberately to make you notice, to make you feel something. Steve Jobs knew the power of small design choices. They could make products unforgettable. In Apple's case, a simple color choice helped turn technology into fashion and users into a community bonded by white earbuds. That is why Steve Jobs cared so much about the color of headphones. Because it was never just about the color at all. It was about what that color meant for the experience of everyone who ever pressed play on an iPod.